Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Woke Wednesdays. We do this every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Hurston. I'm the founder of Woke Wednesdays. And tonight we have some pretty amazing guests, and we're addressing a very important topic. So, would you like to kind of introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'll kick us off. Good evening, Woke Wednesdays. My name is Lena. I'm a hypnotherapist here in Miami. I work out of Wellness Room Miami. And tonight I'm being involved with the autoimmune discussion because 2.5 years ago I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So thank you all for tuning in. This is Dr. Newman. I'll let him do his introduction.
I'm a doctor of holistic medicine and acupuncture at the Banyan Holistic in Miami. I grew up with a mother who has fibromyalgia now for 70 plus years. And my experience growing up with a mom with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue led me to a career in healthcare, more specifically holistic healthcare.
And we also have, would you like to
Yeah.
introduce?
So you guys can't see her, but this is on the phone calling in from Austin, Texas. Shamika, the founder of Loop of Love, has made herself available to us. So she's going to talk. Let us know if you guys hear her well. If not, I'll just repeat what she says.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, good evening. I'm Shamika, the founder and director of Loop of Love, a nonprofit organization that raises awareness for people living with lupus. I would like to say thanks to Woke Wednesdays for having me this evening. Lupus is very close to home. I was diagnosed in 2014 and decided to start the nonprofit organization to raise awareness to the illness. So a lot of work to be done in this area, so I'm looking forward to our discussion tonight.
Awesome. And I also tagged both y'all in the promo video for today. So feel free to follow them if that's okay with y'all.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, I also tagged our location. So in case you want to come out and check out Dr. Newman, you also have our location there. So tonight we're talking about autoimmune disorders. We were talking before the show how a lot of people just kind of really don't talk about it, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, I Googled a statistic and it said 1 out of 5 Americans deals with an autoimmune disorder of some type.
That sounds about right.
50 million Americans. Yeah, so we're going to start at very basic. So do y'all know what, feel free to talk to the audience, do y'all know what an autoimmune disorder is? Do y'all currently, if so, what's your relationship to it? My mom has lupus and fibromyalgia.
Yeah, fibromyalgia.
Right, everyone here. So what is an autoimmune disorder?
Do you want to kick us off first?
I'll kick us off. So for a long time, these were largely misunderstood by the medical community. People were having symptoms such as inflammation, chronic fatigue, immune system being compromised in various ways. They weren't really seeing the whole picture, especially as the body and mind are involved. So back in the day, they would say, we can't test for any of this stuff. There's nothing coming up in your lab. Everything looks clear. It must be in your head. Go see a psychiatrist. Go see a psychologist. And now what we've come to understand is, of course, the body is involved. They're studying hormone levels. They're studying the fact that in some cases we've been exposed to, the reactions of Epstein-Barr virus. There's this, that, and the other thing. But basically, the body is fighting itself. The body's autoimmune. The body is turning its own immune system against itself, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, fibromyalgia, ulcerative colitis. There's multiple sclerosis. Yeah.
POTS.
Yeah, and so we have to look at why this is. In part, and I'm glad that Lena's here as an expert hypnotherapist in this niche, is that your mind is perceiving many things on the subconscious level. We're not even aware of the information that's coming in all the time, but that information and that processing is being taken up by your body, and it's reacting and responding in various ways.
So would an example of this be stress?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. And right now we're seeing, adrenal fatigue, another label that doctors are kind of, poo-pooing. But people, they're in and day out stress, they're burned out, their adrenals will shut down, and there's other cascading of effects that take place. But we do tend, most of us, to work really hard and not get the downtime that we need. And we do
Not the
burn
restorative
out.
work even, I think to touch on so I am a hypnotherapist, not a medical practitioner, but from the hypnotherapy perspective, we empower this idea of
Real quick, what is hypnotherapy?
So let's start with that basic first. So hypnotherapy is the practice of retraining the brain so that it perceives its environment to its best benefit. That's the way, at least that's the approach that I take with hypnosis. Hypnosis has been used for many things. It's typically seen as stage hypnosis, as entertainment. It has a long history with not even being real, with being witchcrafty, incantations. I've heard all kinds of crazy things. But hypnosis is a deeper level of guided meditation where you travel into the unconscious mind through the help of a hypnotherapist to see what potential you can unlock, to see what's happening inside the unconscious mind that is blocking you from living life to your best potential. That's really what the basic of it is.
And Carla's telling us that her husband has
Hashimoto's.
Yeah, thyroid related.
Yeah, so she says they're both watching, so thank you so much. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I see new people are getting on, so thank you much for tuning in. So now we're talking about autoimmune disorders. So we've kind of talked a little bit about what they are. So what are some of the symptoms? I know you mentioned a couple. Like, what are some of the symptoms that people should kind of look out for as they're and feel free, Shamika, jump in.
Shamika, do you want to take that one?
Yes, certainly. So again, going off of Doc's point, so a lot of times with autoimmune diseases, as we mentioned, I know for lupus specifically, it's known also as the invisible illness. So a lot of times you maybe don't see the physical signs of it, like on your skin and so forth. I know for me, if someone looks at me, they'll say, "Oh, you look perfectly fine," and that's also one of the misconceptions that people have, is that sometimes it doesn't have a look per se. But I do know that with people with lupus, a lot of times they can have extreme fatigue, which is one of the very common symptoms of lupus. Headaches, joints pain, the joints can swell, pain, sometimes breathing, hair loss, and light sensitivity. Those are some of the symptoms, the common symptoms of lupus.
Sure.
Yeah.
So my experience with fibromyalgia was long, but symptoms for me looked like extreme swelling of the joints. Particularly for fibromyalgia, we have 18 trigger points that are found in the body that are correlated to fibromyalgia. If you have 11 of those trigger points that tend to hurt, ache, go off, you can be considered for fibromyalgia, considered for the diagnosis. For me, it was the hips. I remember being 20 years old, and there were days where it was very difficult to get out of bed. Not because I was tired or because I was depressed, but because physically I was awake and ready to go, but my body at the time of getting up would just kind of collapse, and I'd just have to stay in bed to let it, regenerate itself in a way, make sure that it was ready to go. So the swelling of the joints, the fatigue.
Question: Did anyone ever tell you, or even still tell you, "Oh, you're just being lazy"?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, this is really just get up, get over it.
Yeah, 100%. I've gotten the you're an entitled millennial.
Oh,
right,
wow.
right,
Nice.
of course, right. That's a common one. It's just because you're a
Shamika's
millennial.
agreeing, yeah.
Yeah.
You got that too, Shamika?
Yeah, I think that, and even sometimes, when you speak with people that have lupus, that's one of the main things that the pain points. It's like, "Oh, you'll be okay. Just brush it off," kind of.
Just go do some stretches.
Pushing them to the side.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that also. I'm not by any. I'm glad we have a doctor here to clarify this, but and that can play also with the mental state of individuals, especially when they're recently diagnosed. They don't know how to cope with things like these, and just to be brushed off, it kind of affects persons and their psychological health as well. So I think that it's very, very important that we take it seriously and be sensitive towards individuals with autoimmune diseases when it comes to
Yeah.
And be willing to turn over every stone that we can. I know, especially in the case of fibromyalgia, it's just a label. It just means, for the most part, muscle pain, because they don't really know. So they created a label to fit everybody in a nice box, which the mainstream tends to do. We have to fit in our nice little boxes,
Or
or
check
else.
something off on.
So but I can tell you, as I'm sure you guys can attest, if my mom was bumped, she was done for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Really, she would strain with anything, and she was done.
I go out once a week as a 24-year-old if I try, and I'm done for the 5 following days. I need real rest. Very deep restorative work has to be done if I stayed out late till 5 a.m. and decided to enjoy more than half a drink with my friends.
My mom, if a bug bites her,
Wow.
she's done. She needs to go home, or she'll go out. Let's say she loves going to church, so she'll go to church for 3 hours. After that, she goes right back home because she's exhausted.
It's exhausting.
And if people are stuck in the mainstream and they're trying to cope, they may be taking steroids for years or forever. Anti-anxiety medications like Xanax and all the rest to help them manage with chronic depression or,
So I love that you brought this up, because when my mom was diagnosed, the first thing, we see this a lot with Western type approaches, is that pills.
Yeah.
They're recommending every pill in the book, steroids,
Sure.
big one.
Which make it worse, by the way. The steroids have been proven to make it worse.
Can you explain that real quick? Because I found that out too.
Yeah. So I still to this day have not taken a single pill for my fibromyalgia. I was talking about it briefly earlier before we started the show. My first experience was a doctor giving me a piece of paper and a prescription, and the prescription was for antidepressant. And even though I was in a lot of pain, I said to the doctor, I'm not depressed. I know I'm not depressed. I feel physical pain and it's exhausting. And what I learned over time was that it was great that I didn't say yes to the antidepressants. That even now, today, I look into the fact that maybe I was misdiagnosed as new symptoms come up, as they tend to. Maybe I was misdiagnosed and it's actually lupus. I notice all kinds of new symptoms on a weekly and monthly basis that Shamika can attest to this, I'm sure. We track our symptoms. At least I know I do. I have a journal where every now and again I try to write down when a new symptom comes up. And I try to track that for a little bit. Just to see when I go to the doctor and say, this is actually what I have for you, because it's a very tricky system to work with. But on the note of the steroids and the antidepressants, it's been proven that they actually make it worse. And my belief, and please feel free, when we take these antidepressants and these pills, they actually weaken our immune system. So if we're giving something to someone whose immune system is already compromised, that's going to make it weaker, I really am sorry, I don't fucking know why we do that. I don't know why we introduce this foreign medication to our body to try to help it repair itself, when we know very well that the medication that we take after surgeries, the medication that we take to trick ourselves, makes the makes the immune system more compromised, as opposed to putting good things into the body.
Well, this is a whole.
To piggyback, I'm sorry.
No, please go for it.
A little bit on what you're saying. I feel like diet is one of the main things, and I know that even for myself, that it's helped me a lot to cope with a lot of the symptoms that I feel. When I was recently diagnosed with lupus, my diet was completely, I ate horrible, and just changing things as simple as drinking almond milk and incorporating a lot of fruits and vegetables and grains into my diet has helped me significantly. And I really do believe that diet has a lot to contribute towards the body and the way that it responds and acts. So I always encourage everyone to just try to eat a little bit better if you can. Maybe do a lot of juicing, things like that to help.
Low sugar.
I know it's helped me. Yeah, low sodium if you can avoid high sodium. That's helped me a lot.
I've learned avoiding foods that inflame the nervous system. That inflame the nervous system and that tend to throw your hormonal system out of whack. That helps me. Before it was a near vegan diet for me, and recently I've committed to a vegan diet. I keep it very, very clean, and it makes a difference. I've noticed it makes a big difference. I'm plant-based. 100% plant-based. My weekly groceries look like veggies, fresh veggies, fresh fruits, never frozen. I do some grains, but I keep it low on the wheat and the gluten. Very important there, because those also throw the nervous system out of whack a little bit. And lots of water. Juicing, like Shamika said, lots and lots of water. I cannot stress that enough. A lot of natural herbs and tonics, apple cider vinegars in my diet. Turmeric is huge in my diet.
Excellent. I work with a rheumatologist.
Yeah.
And this rheumatologist, she's mainstream. She tries to do things natural.
What's a rheumatologist?
Rheumatologist is a doctor that studies inflammation, and she's prescribing turmeric to her patients.
Wow.
And she's conventionally trained. They have a prescription called Rheumate, like rheumatology, but Rheumate, and it's turmeric, a B vitamin, and I think magnesium.
Oh, this is just
and that's
like,
it. There's nothing like chemicals in there.
Have you heard of Fibroweed?
That's a vitamin?
It's like
a prescription. You get it from your doctor, and it's prescribed. But they're vitamins and turmeric, which is the best natural anti-inflammatory on the market, probably.
Yeah.
Really? So I guess you just go to a regular doctor to...
Well, if they're open to it, they'll prescribe it. But you can also just take turmeric, and you can do this
You can make
work
it on your
yourself.
own,
You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but this whole idea of hydration, I wanted to come back to that because our massage therapists, I work with massage therapists of different kinds, and they are always emphasizing how important hydration is for various reasons. But number one, your muscles will spasm and cramp very easily if they get dehydrated. This is critical. And apart from other kinds of biological functions, we're mostly water, 70% water. And then there's the whole, what does your mind, thought, intention do to the water molecules in your body?
All right.
This is a conversation we could have probably down the road. You know, but anyway,
The water's important.
critical.
And
Real quick question. We're being asked, is turmeric, is it a spice?
it is a spice. It's not
Yeah.
spicy,
Mhm.
but it's a spice.
Okay.
Yeah, and but however, while you can find it any place that sells your local produce, it looks like ginger. It's a little rude.
Yeah.
You know, and this might be
Ginger
count-
is also good.
Ginger is great
It's a
too.
great anti-inflammatory.
When you use these, and definitely cook with them, make teas with them, whatever,
You can throw them in anything.
in anything. However, I often recommend as a physician to go ahead and get something that's standardized in a dose, either drops, extract, or a capsule,
Something
so
really
you
like,
know this is how much I'm getting.
right, something concentrated.
Concentrate, and you know what you're taking. You could take a root, but is it 1,000 milligrams? Is it 850 milligrams? You know, how
Does
do you
that
really?
take away from?
Hmm?
Does that take away like turning it into a capsule? Does that
Well,
take
you
away
know, this
from-
is a double-edged sword because there are so many companies that follow good manufacturing process, and you know the products you get from them are high-quality products, and you can trust what you're getting in the way of vitamins or other from them. But you're gonna know, hey, I have to take 1,000 milligrams twice a day for 30 days or whatever. You want to know, and it's convenient, of course, which, you know, it may be aside, but I love to emphasize what the easy, convenient things
Absolutely.
you can do on a day-to-day are. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. You know, keep it simple. Life is complicated enough, you know.
And real
But
quick,
still, make teas
yeah.
and however, but also perhaps get these in a very good quality extract form.
So to
Fibro
get
aid
these
is a
in extract
recommendation.
form, you have to get this from a doctor, like Fibro.
No.
You
So
can get this from just like
Dr.
Walmart.
Newman and Shamika, I don't know if you have a supplement that you prefer, but I know myself, I'm using Fibro Aid,
Fibro aid.
which I discovered, I guess affiliate marketing at its finest, right?
Mhm.
Google knows that I'm constantly researching my
Google
autoimmune
knows
disorder.
everything.
Google knows
about you.
everything, right?
Yeah.
So Google
It even
is.
knows things about us that we don't know
That we
about
don't know.
ourselves.
You want a new pair of Nikes? Yes. How did you know?
How did you know? Like
Yeah.
the all-knowing Google knows
Yeah.
that I'm regularly
Yeah.
doing research, which I'll touch on that point very briefly. It's so important to be your own advocate, particularly with these disorders that are invisible and that the doctors are not supporting. So it's so important to be your own advocate, to find groups like Loop of Love that
Absolutely.
would provide community
That's a great
support.
point.
But do your own research, man. You know, like we're
Mhm.
intelligent individuals. Just because we have something that's affecting us doesn't mean that we're at will of the doctors, that they know everything. I've learned my journey with autoimmune disorder has led me down the path of trusting my body more than anything. Listening to my body so that I can trust it is really what it
I
is.
like that.
So
That's
you
good.
really have to be willing to do that work and be in tune with yourself so that you can discover what makes you feel good. I don't believe that everything can be cured. I think there are cures for what we have, but I know 100% fact, I've seen it in my life and I've seen it in the lives of my clients, everything can be healed. Curing and healing are different, but if you are your own advocate, if you do your research, you do the work, you can definitely heal and lead a high quality life, a very high quality life.
And I think something to kind of like summarize what y'all are saying is that diet is huge.
Diet is huge.
Diet is huge, and also the type of the field that you're in, the field of work, right? Whether it's acupuncture or
Hypnotherapy.
hypnotherapy, it also goes to the psychological aspect of these types of disorders. And another thing, I love your point about advocating for yourself. My mom doesn't speak any English, right? So
Okay.
I had to go out along with my siblings to look up information on her behalf, and also be advocates along with her. So there's a good book called Goodbye Lupus. There's YouTube videos on it, and they pretty much re-emphasize what we've been saying. They're big on juicing, like Shamika was saying. A lot of greens, like just collard greens, spinach, broccoli, all this stuff. Again, plant-based vegan, probably one of the best things. Real quick, I want to read some of these comments. There was a question by, let me see.
Cannabis.
Yes. Let's see. Oh man, I missed it. Well, Andrea was basically asking about cannabis. Is
Right here.
oh, yeah. Have they done? Oh no, Kosher Woodlands. Have they done research to see if cannabis helps fibromyalgia?
Shamika,
Do
you
y'all
have
know?
anything on that?
Well, not from a from a culture perspective, I know that for persons with lupus, you're not really encouraged to smoke if you're taking it in that way. I haven't seen much from a different perspective on that, so no, not really.
I guess then I have something quick for that.
What about CBD?
CBD is different.
What's
and
that?
CBD is it's one of the alkaloids, or a couple of the alkaloids in marijuana, but not with THC. Although there are some that have, some that don't. And it can be taken as an ointment. People that have
Like
pain.
something topical, right?
Topical, you rub, and it's an extract from marijuana that you can put. Great for pain relief.
I've heard it's wonderful for the pain relief.
Yeah.
We've had patients that have, I know it's a separate topic, one in particular comes to mind, she had epilepsy. We were using acupuncture to treat her epilepsy, it was helping. When she added the CBD, it disappeared completely.
Amazing.
Completely.
So you get that from like a doctor again? Is that
You
prescribed?
know, it's
In
not being
Florida,
prescribed yet.
not yet.
There's a
Oh,
gray
okay.
area.
There's you'd have to develop what they call a compassionate relationship with a doctor that can prescribe in certain areas of Florida. Again, the all-knowing Google and the all-knowing Gmail. When Florida passed the law for medical marijuana, I received an email from a company, a medical practice that can prescribe certain CBDs and different THC and things like this, and you can have your medical card. But it's a process of, I don't know, I think you pay like $350 to get it. You have to have a compassionate relationship with the doctor for 3 months, these kinds of things.
Like some passionate
But on the lupus note, actually,
Sounds like a
like
Yeah.
there's no way.
what's going on there?
there's on the lupus.
real quick, let me read some of these comments. We're writing turmeric. Is that
Turmeric, yeah.
They're like, yeah, it's in the spice aisle. Okay. And Carla is
It's
saying
almost tasteless. Yeah.
almost tasteless. So they put it almost on everything.
100%, Carla. You're doing it right.
Of course, Carla's saying go vegan. We had a vegan episode, and Carla was on it, and yeah,
Fantastic.
definitely pro vegan. Let's see.
I'm sure many of your viewers have seen Forks Over Knives.
Yeah,
This documentary,
It's a
Netflix, I
Netflix
think.
documentary.
And
Oh,
it's two medical doctors. I think one's a cardiologist. You know, and it's their 30 years of research in plant-based diets and how they have been shown to reverse a number of chronic illnesses, inflammatory and otherwise. The Gerson diet, it's a juicing diet
Oh, look, you got a diet.
and a
The Gerson-
detox,
oh.
and it helps the patients that have cancer even.
I understood that the wrong way. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, you know, your diet is helping people eliminate cancer cells from their body and things.
I save lives.
So-
I save lives.
I say it right. There you go.
I'm Captain Planet. The Latino Captain Planet. Yeah.
To go back to Shamika's response on lupus, though, I used to work with a woman who's had lupus for 8 years, and every month she would leave the office for a whole day to get an infusion. One day I said, "Hey T, what infusion are you talking about?" And Teresa said, "My infusion," she talks about this openly in the office here in Miami, she says, "My infusion is 70% THC right now." I said, "Shit." And she goes to her doctor, she sees a doctor out of UM, Dr. Carpintera, who I've heard really wonderful things about in the space of rheumatology and autoimmune disorders here in Miami. It's an infusion that is 70% THC. It has a few steroids. Now, it's very interesting, and this is where a lot of debate opens up. They also put the flu into this, yeah,
Like a vaccine style?
like a vaccine style,
Okay.
into this infusion. And I thought that's interesting. She said, the first day or two of my infusion, I do not leave my house. She's quarantined because it has to, her body has to adapt, and it's got to assimilate into her system. But after that, she says, I get it every month and I feel better. To give you an idea of what her lifestyle is like, just so you see, to provide a little bit of proof. She couldn't be with us tonight. Her daughter's graduating high school. So those important things going on. But for her, we used to work together at RMG Staffing. A great company, but it's a high stress industry, right? Staffing high-end events in Miami. Imagine, this is a 24/7 industry. You're running hard for 60 hours out of your week, night and day, picking up the phone when you're home, always on the go. She was driving from Homestead to Brickell, like 5 kids, living a very high-paced lifestyle. And she said, the doctors told me 2 years ago that I should have stopped working, that I need to stop working. They keep telling me, you're gonna make yourself worse one day, it's gonna backfire. And because she said, no, my body can do this, I can do this. And she, again, advocated for herself and sought out different treatments and was willing to ask those scary questions. Doctor, where are what can we do? I don't, let's talk about what's open to me. in various fields. And through that process, I mean, she shows up to work every day on time, works as harder than any of us. Well, you know, it's a very hardworking company, but she's one of the hardest workers on the team, and she kept up with all of us with lupus for 8 years. She used to be in a wheelchair.
Wow.
So there's, again, just I tell her story just to really touch on the importance of empowering yourself with knowledge, and being willing to go out there and talk to your doctor and say, okay, this is what you're telling me I should do. This is what I'm thinking. Let's see how we can do this together, because your doctor's not in your body, you're in your body. But you do need a support system. So how can you guys do this work together?
Yeah.
Anything to
Well,
add,
I
Shamika?
completely agree with that. And one of the things that I would encourage anyone that's suffering from any autoimmune disease, particularly lupus, is to know your body. It's very important to know you and know how you respond and know what triggers you or what causes a flare or anything like that. So I typically encourage people to keep a diary if it works best for you, and jot down when you feel a certain way and see, you know, after eating what foods, how do you feel, and just know yourself. But also to take things in stride. I know for myself, even with doing simple house chores that I have to do them sporadically, like in doses. I can't do everything at once because it, you know, at times you may get very, very tired. So just do it in sets. Take your time and do a little bit now, a little bit later. But I found that a lot of people living with lupus in particular are very resilient. I don't know if that's because they just want to be like, look, this is not going to get me down. I know that with myself, that's one of the things that keeps me going is I feel like, you know what, I cannot let this keep me down. I have to be more than this, and I have to take control of my body, and it's some of the times a mental thing to me. But don't overexert yourself. That's one of the things that I would say as well. Don't do too much. Just do what you can.
So we've kind of talked about diet.
Yep.
We've talked about just kind of self-care, self-advocating. What about exercise? I've heard like kind of like mixed reviews. Sometimes people should, sometimes they shouldn't.
Well, you know, the body needs to move.
Yes.
Yeah.
The body needs to move, and like you were saying, Shamika, you should be very determined, persistent, but also tuning into your body. I mean,
compassion.
Yeah, you want to be good to yourself and easy with yourself to an extent. Even as a doctor, I would tell patients, I'm at best a guide for you. You know yourself, like you were saying, Lena, 24/7. You live with yourself. So I'm just my educated best guess, but you know, does it resonate with you? You know.
I do yoga.
But more to your point, yes.
Yeah.
So anything, and this is what I talk about exercise. If you can strengthen your core safely, carefully, this is critical for the health of your body, for building up power, balance, stability, you know, for relying less on your muscles and more on core strength or on connective tissue strength than on being strong per se. You can still be powerful without being strong, you know, and yoga is a great art for this. Tai Chi, Pilates, there's a lot of others that focus on developing your core
water exercises,
health.
Aquatic exercise I find does wonders for it as well.
Oh, that buoyancy.
The buoyancy, right? And I think what Dr. Newman is saying is so true. You really have to just kind of know your body, but it's a great question about the physical activity, Jerson, because for last week I was asked to go to a soccer event, like to play soccer, and I was just like, okay, no. I can't do soccer. That's a lot of energy. My tolerance isn't there yet, right? But what I notice when I do challenge myself, it's important, like Shamika says, to do things in doses and to not overexert yourself. But then I think it's also important to the resilience, right? So it's important to challenge yourself in comfortable ways. Sometimes you gotta live uncomfortable in a challenge, right? You gotta roll up your sleeves and you gotta kind of get in the dirt, like they say. But you have to challenge yourself. So maybe there's a day that I was mentally exhausted because I ran around town a lot, I saw lots of clients, whatever it may have been. But I know that I didn't do the physical work yet. That's the day actually that I challenge myself the most. I say today we're doing 30 minutes of yoga versus the regular 20 because I know I didn't do the physical activity yet. And mentally I'm exhausted. And a really important point I know my experience with fibromyalgia, especially with lupus as well, when we're in pain, when the body perceives that it's in pain, that actually does something to your brain. There's a lot of research that proves what happens with the difference between a mind that is in pain and a mind that's not, on a neurological level. We're not just talking like, oh man, I feel sad because I'm heartbroken. No. Talking on a neurological level, when the body is perceiving pain, it actually exhausts you more than anything else. Because your body is constantly in this feel of fight or flight, because it's in pain, your body not knowing what to do with it because it's got this, invader, so to speak, just doesn't know what to do, and it gets tired. It gets really tired because you're just feeling pain all the time. And to combat that, I challenge myself physically. I challenge myself mentally as well. On this path, I found a lot of spirituality helps me in tons. But on the note of physical work, I find I do yoga. When I'm doing my yoga and I'm in my warrior pose, that's when I feel the most powerful. And that does something for me mentally. My mind gets it back. Even though I was a little tired, when I'm done with the yoga, my mind feels stronger because I just reminded myself physically, on a sensory level, what I can do, how strong I am. And the physical work does that for me on a mental and emotional level. It provides me that security.
This is one of the things I like about yoga in particular, is that, and this could be with any challenge we face, but in yoga it's kind of the epitome of this. You might be holding your pose, whatever it is, and you inevitably will come to a moment where you don't think you can hold it for a moment longer or maybe stretch a millimeter further, but then you do.
You breathe one more time.
Yeah, you take one more breath or whatever. And so I emphasize this with patients. Whatever your personal challenge is, hang with it for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Hang out with it for a bit, because you will discover inevitably that you will push yourself so many more times than you realize beyond what you thought was impossible. I'm going to die if I hold this position. But you don't die, And these are little victories that you should celebrate.
Yes.
They're taken for granted. They're very small. But celebrate all of those little victories over what you thought was
important.
impossible. And this goes back to your empowerment thing, which maybe we'll circle back around to that in a little bit, because it's really important. But you got to find ways to stay with your challenge.
Shamika, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I completely agree. I think one of the important things too is, and I'm going to go back to it, is knowing yourself, like knowing who you are. And sometimes that may be spending quiet time with yourself. I think when your body physically requires you to do, it takes a toll on you to do more, that having that calm in your brain and mentally being able to wusa is one of the things that can actually help you a lot. And that's very important.
Start your day that way.
So one thing that we said, and this is going back real quick, I just remembered water, right? So you mentioned water. One thing that's so fun, and so I try to drink a gallon a day.
Okay.
All right, every day. One thing that I tell people, I ask people all the time, how much water do you drink? Oh, I drink lots of water. I drink water all the time. All right. So how much do you drink? Like 2 glasses maybe. So one thing, and maybe this goes back to maybe the milligrams of knowing how much of intake you have. How much water do you recommend for folks with autoimmune diseases?
Do we need more?
Yeah, it's kind of a loaded question, because everybody is unique in their need for water. You should stay well hydrated. But this whole thing of diet comes into play, and are you outside, inside, humidity, environment?
What's your activity?
This is the holistic. What are your environment? What's your body need? All this stuff. And I'll tell you, in my experience with one patient in particular, he was very adamant about keeping a very low salt diet, low sodium, low potassium, things like that. But yet, while he had very low electrolytes, he also drank a lot of water. And what few electrolytes he had, he flushed out of his system. And he ended up having stroke-like symptoms, not a stroke. But he was dizzy, he couldn't see or hear well, he was discoordinated, uncoordinated, and scary.
So flushing out the good things from your body as
yeah,
much as possible.
he went to the hospital because it was like a stroke, the symptoms. And they said his sodium and potassium were almost zero. Now your nervous system needs these minerals to function properly. There's a pump that allows the electrical signals to travel through your nervous system that depend on sodium and potassium. In particular, heart functions on potassium. And when those bottom out, you could die. So,
Wow.
I mean, still drink a lot of water.
But
How much is
Don't drink any
variable.
water.
It's variable.
No,
But you're also going to eat your water.
You're going to eat your water.
Vegetables and fruits.
Absolutely.
This is probably
tea.
as important, if not more, than drinking a lot, is being able to metabolize it with your
Right.
foods on the cellular level.
You bring up a valid point though. for example, I do not add extra salt or sugar to my food. Very rarely. Now I add some if it's like a natural salt or a natural form of sugar. But I was reminded by another acupuncturist. She said, "You're not no sodium though, right?" And I said, "No, I definitely realize that I'm getting sodium, perhaps from my fruits and veggies, perhaps from food that already comes spiced, maybe, right? This kind of thing. But I'm not adding extra fake stuff to my food." So there's a difference here, right? It's very important to be aware of what you're putting in your body, because we do need we need sodium. Our body does need these elements, right? Like we've all remember the periodic table and things like this, right? Those,
wow.
right?
Took it back.
Yeah, the periodic table. Those are elements, not all of them, obviously, but these are elements that occur in nature, most of them, and what occurs in nature must occur in our body as well. It's important to remember that connection between ourselves and nature. And if nature's got it, then we have to find a natural way to get it too, how to keep it in our bodies. And, again, maybe you're not adding, what's the brand of salt, that iodized salt or table salt? Please don't add tons of that to your food. Your body doesn't need that, but it needs sodium. Low sodium foods, great that they're advertised that way. It's a nice gimmick. But make sure you're reading how much sodium it has. If you eat a lot of protein bars, you're getting lots of sodium.
A test that they make in the military is that when you pee, it should be clear, so you don't get dehydrated. You'll know.
Shouldn't be yellow.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be. I mean, exactly. It shouldn't be yellow. It should be clear.
It should be clear.
So that's how you know if you're well hydrated. Is if when you pee, it's clear. That's important.
I heard too that if you sweat,
Yeah.
if it tastes salty, then that means you don't have enough water.
Also true.
Is that true?
Yes,
Okay.
it
So
is.
there's two things.
Yes, it
It
is.
kinda-
It's the taste of you, really.
Yeah. And kind of in talking about resources too, there's some really great YouTube videos out there kind of explaining vegan meals. Also in Spanish, I found a lot of Spanish vegan meals.
Oh, wow.
Like plant-based type of things. So all things that are just kind of extremely important that oftentimes we just don't know about. Or
Maybe at the
Right.
end when you post this on YouTube, we can
Yeah.
tag some of these different things.
yeah, absolutely. We could do all that. We can definitely do all that. Shamika, did you want to say something? I thought she was.
No, I'm just enjoying the conversation about sodium because that was one of the areas that I really struggled with. Originating from the Caribbean, we normally cook with a long
Colombia, here's you.
flavor. So that was really hard for me to break out of, but definitely once I stop, I see the difference and I feel it too. And I think, that's a good point, but that was really hard for me to do.
I have a question for Shamika, coming from the space of a nonprofit organization and the mission that you shared with us for Loop of Love, and I think it's relevant for all of us. A great question. Support, whether it's community
I was
support.
just about to ask that. Yeah.
I'm glad we read each other's minds.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that.
Community support, family support. What are your thoughts and experiences with that, Shamika?
So I feel like there's a lot more that we can do from a support perspective. I think even on our social media, when I asked the lupus community, what would you like to see more of? A lot of the responses that I received was more support groups. Like the majority of that is more support groups. And I think that
Thank you so much.
there is information out there, but that especially when you're transitioning from being a normal person in society to now someone that's affected by an autoimmune disease, learning how to transition is extremely important, and knowing what to look for and things that how you're going to expect to feel and how to respond to negative comments and negative persons when you feel a certain way is extremely important. So I think that there's a lot more that can be done as far as support.
And how do you find
I was just about
how do you find it? Are we doing that? Are we sharing thoughts here?
Yeah, we're just
How do
One
you
for the
find
viewers.
water? Yeah, right. Sharing some water with them.
I know this is different. Usually we have something else.
We got
but
the
this
wrong
is-
glass because mine has lip gloss.
Oh,
okay.
good catch.
Mine doesn't. Yeah.
How do you find, and for you guys, it's you guys can have the opposite perspective, but the support of your family, Shamika, what difference does that make for you in your experience with lupus and combating it, really?
That made a huge. That was great for me, and I'm lucky. I'm very fortunate because I have an extremely great family that's always been supportive. I know that when I was recently diagnosed with lupus, as soon as I got diagnosed, I was living with my sister-in-law at the time, who's very, very supportive, and she works in the healthcare field, so she provided a lot of guidance on diet and recommendations on what to eat and how to respond to certain things, and I think that was very important. But just even sometimes when you're not feeling well, and to know that your family understands that, and they're not expecting you to move mountains, but they're understanding that's very important. I think that everyone in my circle has been extremely supportive, even with Loop of Love and any initiative that I have. My family is usually on board and willing to help. I think that makes the grand of a difference. But Loop of Love is there, and I say this because there are some people that aren't as fortunate as I am. They don't have a family that's structured the way that mine is, and they may need someone there for them. And that's why we encourage them to be a part of the Loop of Love family, so that we can be that for them, just to give them that love and support.
And you touched on something, two things that I'll comment on there. In the space of having Loop of Love, Shamika actually, so Shamika and I know each other through my best friend in the whole world, who also participates in Loop of Love. Loop of Love is an organization that is completely created by a family of strong women who support Shamika in this cause, in this initiative. Among them is my best friend Kamaria. And through conversations with Kamaria and Shamika from the Loop of Love space, I was inspired to start my own page. I'm not going nonprofit, but similar to what Herson has started here with Woke Wednesdays, _ photo my fibro exists on Instagram already. There's no content there yet, but we've got a logo, and it tells you what we're doing.
Tag and
I will.
we can take a picture afterwards.
Yeah,
and then we can tag everyone. Yeah.
Absolutely. Photo my fibro is going to be there. We're really actually we're capturing the journey of the invisible condition. That's my mission with that. Through photography, through different art, through different conversations like this, things like that. And it will be there as a support system. And to go to the original question, I'm really curious to hear the opposing side though, as family members, what that feels like.
The complementary
side.
Yeah.
For me, I had to learn how to take, how Shamika says, how to take negative things in a positive way. Hypnotherapy was what helped me do that, change my perspective. I have a beautiful family that I love very, very much. But it's hard, right? I think you guys can attest to that. It's hard to receive this information that there's something going on inside of a family member of yours that seems to be outside of their control, and gosh, of course, even way more outside of your own control. I come from the Latin American background, so I know that for my father, who loves me more than anyone, I think, has ever loved their kid, it's very hard for him to accept that this is something that happens in my life. Because we'll talk about it, and he'll ask, how are you feeling? But I know that he's not ready for the full answer, and so I'll just kind of maybe fluff it up for him a little bit. But my sister's been very supportive. But you have to know, if your family's not structured the way Shamika is, hold them accountable anyway, because that is your support system, and hold yourself accountable to say, I don't think you're ready to hear this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. And speak your truth is very important. Speak about how you feel, not just what you think this is, not just about, speak about how you feel. For me, I struggle to ask my family for support. I feel like with fibromyalgia, because it's something that happens so internally, I've kind of made myself think that I have to do it alone. And that's why I asked the question about support, because I struggle with it. I know now, today, as of last week, after a conversation with a great friend of mine, she said, maybe your lesson in life is learning that you don't have to do it alone. I said, shit.
Yeah, really one of the things that I would like to encourage people to not do is to not take advice from a misinformed person. Because a lot of this can sometimes be our family members. We can have people that don't know what the illness is, and they're going based off of, I've had people say to me, oh, well, you can't ever have a kid, and you can't do this, and just that negativity, but they're misinformed. And I think that it's our job to educate them and to say, well, that may have been the case, a decade ago, but now this is what it looks like. The future looks bright. And not taking that negativity and not listening to that is going to be very helpful, because the more that we know, the more we can educate, the more awareness that we can bring to others.
Absolutely.
What about you, Dad?
And how many problems in our world are based on misunderstandings, misinformation, confusion.
We could avoid wars that way. Yeah.
No, I would say in terms of support, I'm in the medical field because I grew up with a mom that has fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. And, my earliest days as a medical professional were focused on women's health. And autoimmune disorders is still a highlight of our practice now. I've been licensed for 20 years, and this is a big part of what we do. I've learned to be as supportive and open as I can with her and others. I saw whenever she hit the wall, we all had to pick up the slack for that, and gratefully so. Fortunately, we were also a pretty tight family. Knock on wood. That was my experience. But that being said, I learned about the power of meditation and good diet by struggling with her through her healing journey, because again, doctors mainstream didn't know what they were looking at. Still largely they don't. And so I've been open to that, and having this idea that you have to listen to your body, you both have talked about that, is critical. How many of us are just living in our heads all the time? We're not even listening to our own bodies. It's and our own body has an intelligence, it has intuition about things that we should be paying more attention to, or allowing rather into the larger framework of our experience.
Receiving as valid information.
Yeah.
So kind of going, maybe a two-part question. So one thing that my mom, when she used to go more often to the doctor, she would say that they were always ready to prescribe something.
Yep.
Always just ready to prescribe, as opposed to kind of listening. And you seem, just even like the way you've been interacting with us tonight, that you seem just kind of, this listening is a big part of just your job as a doctor. Right.
My job as a doctor.
Yeah.
Other doctors maybe less so, to one degree or another.
Yeah.
I'm not calling anybody on the carpet, but there's a business of medicine.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is a whole nother series of talks we could probably have.
Yeah.
But really, there are good doctors out there on both sides of the fence. I mean mainstream and holistic, let's say, or complementary. But last year the pharmaceutical companies made more money than the oil industry, which tells you something, that maybe in whatever their field is, whether it's cancer or any number of other things, that at least from the pharmaceutical perspective, they don't want people to be healthy. Healthy people don't need any prescriptions. And this is why I got involved with holistic. I did my pre-med and I was going towards psychiatry actually, but I didn't want to prescribe medications, and that's all that they did. And I always believed when a person is functioning at their best, they need no medications. So why isn't our goal to prescribe none, whereas doctors will tend to prescribe more, not less or none. Give me a medication if there's a crisis, whatever. But let's look immediately for what else we can do besides take that medication. And that's just not how the model is set up, mainstream-wise.
We definitely have
look, and you guys probably know this, but medical schools are subsidized by drug companies. The insurance companies invest in drug companies, the highest paid lobbyists in Congress to make sure laws get passed or not passed. They're funded by the pharmaceutical industry. I'm not saying we don't need some pharmaceuticals. There are some great life-saving medications out there, but it can't be the only thing. We have to integrate with these other effective, time-tested methods like hypnotherapy. How are we going to address what's going on in that programming of your mind, unconscious-wise, if you don't look?
I'll touch on that.
I love that point.
I'll piggyback on that and something Shamika brought up. One, going to what Shamika said, take advantage to educate the misinformed. Allow it to be a moment where you share information with somebody where you can save them from their ignorance and save yourself, because it helps you feel empowered. It reminds you that you do have somewhat of an idea of what you're doing, and God, we do not have to have it all figured out. Please do not hold yourself accountable for having it all figured out. Hold yourself accountable to manage what's happening in your life. But then that brings me to the point of hypnotherapy. I learned that I'm not responsible for the reaction of others, but I'm responsible for my own. And we hear this in many practices. So if I'm responsible for my reaction, that means I'm responsible for my mental, my physical, my emotional, and my spiritual reaction in life. And that's what I find so wonderful about what we do with the hypnotherapy. As a hypnotherapist, I personally tell every single client of mine, I thank them for bringing their vulnerability and their willingness to do the work. But I also remind them that everything that we work on in their sessions comes back to me, because whatever my client is working on, whatever path that they've allowed me to be a part of for them, helps me heal in some way.
We're mirrors. for
We're
each other.
mirrors, 100%. And a whole other conversation really, but
Yeah, like another 38 episodes of Woke
oh,
Wednesdays.
just right here,
Just with
just
y'all.
right
Writing
here.
this stuff down.
Yeah, no, I'm mental notes, right? But really, when you take the opportunity to misinform the misinformed, also consider yourself as misinformed, because that's a space where you can grow. And I say misinformed because our initial reaction is going to be a little more negative, right? We might say something like, you don't know what you're talking about, you're so ignorant, and it's going to be so frustrating because we're coming from such a personal space. Or perhaps you take a moment to indulge in compassion. And once you are able to be compassionate with those that are outside of your body, outside of even your close circle, you can learn to be compassionate with yourself. And the compassion that we have for ourselves, particularly those of us who are affected by autoimmune disorders or any health, mental health, any kind of health condition, from the internal and the external perspective, as these two gentlemen here, compassion matters. The compassion matters a lot. Hold yourself accountable to be your best advocate, to care for yourself, and remember that nobody wants to pour into an empty glass. So do the work that matters to you, whatever that looks like, whatever form of healing, whatever form of dietary change, whatever form. If that means, my ex-boyfriend used to tell me, he said, you always put a lid on it, Lena. Like, you just kind of let everything build up for all these weeks.
Kitchen sinking.
Right, you know? And then he said, why don't you just talk to me for 5 minutes a day about this? Like, we'll cap it at 5 minutes, right? But let's just do every day. Like, let's just check in with how you're feeling for 5 minutes a day, or what that was like, instead of letting that fill up. And I was like, wow, all right, I'll take you up on that. And he was good for it. And so if you don't have a person, like maybe if you live alone, if you don't have a person to talk to or call, journal. Like Shamika mentioned earlier, she keeps a diary for her dietary needs, for her symptoms, but also a journal, right? Like, be willing to go there and have that vulnerable conversation with yourself, and it'll happen for others
And
too.
don't box yourself in even with this. I have patients, I recommend journals to lots of people because we're all on a self-discovery track to one degree or another.
Yep.
You know, and so there's one in particular, she has a journal. And she used to journal all the time. She has this new journal for her. It's still a new journal. It's like week in and week out, you know. How's it going? I didn't write in my journal. Like, okay, now you want to express yourself for different reasons. You want to get stuff out. You want to hold it inside. You want to track. Where are the patterns? Where's the cycle? What am I looking at here? How do I cope with things that maybe I didn't know before? You know, but really, crack that thing open. I don't care if you draw a picture, you paint a color. You know, what color was your day? What shape was that thing? You know, if it's not journaling, maybe you're gonna play with clay, or maybe you're gonna paint something.
Or
whatever it is.
Microsoft Paint, wonderful tool.
Yeah, you gotta find a way to connect with that part of yourself.
The expression.
They still use that?
Yeah,
That
they
still
do.
exists?
That's it.
That's why I was laughing. I'm not laughing that you suggested it. I didn't know that still existed.
It does still exist.
They still have like paper clips on Word, or what, Microsoft Word, like the paper clip.
Yeah, they do.
On the side.
Oh, you got it.
Man.
But whatever it takes, however you're gonna express yourself, go ahead and do that because, you know, it's critical in terms of your journey and your process.
That's why we're here, right? That's
No, absolutely. And
Yeah,
I think,
we're woke.
Or what?
Yeah,
So
we're waking
I
up.
guess we are.
We're constantly waking up. Yeah. So.
By the way, thank you, Giannu.
But
He's a big supporter. He just shouted out.
So we actually have 5 minutes left. So it goes by fast, right?
I
Because
actually
we're just-
want to say something before we wrap up, and just to remind you, Kirsten, I know that you said that your mom was recently diagnosed, and in that sometimes when we have autoimmune diseases, that we tend to not want to bother people, and it can be like, oh my God, I really don't want to say something again, but the family members also deal with it, and it's hard on them sometimes too because you have to see that every day, and you may see your mom in pain, and you're like, oh my goodness, like you feel like there's really nothing that you can do to help or whatever. But just I would like to personally encourage you to be strong, encourage her as much as you can, and you both will get through it. Persons with lupus normally live a good and healthy life as long as they're getting treatment and so forth. So just hold your head up and encourage her as much as you can, and remind her that she's not a bother to you, because sometimes she may not want to say it.
Yeah, thank you so much. That really means a lot. Thank you. And I hope this goes for everyone too who has family members dealing with autoimmune disorders. And I think that's kind of like a nice segue to just kind of wrapping up. Like, if some parting words, just kind of for everyone. If you could just kind of say something to the people who are dealing with an autoimmune disorder or who have family members, what would y'all kind of say to them? It's just kind of 30 seconds.
What I say, I would say, you're the expert in yourself. Empower yourself. You know, we're gonna come up with so much challenge in our life, physical, emotional, relationship-wise, environmental. Stay with those challenges because that's how you're gonna grow. Empower yourself to take whatever steps, even if they're baby steps. You know, but give it whatever your 100% looks like. If you're gonna only give 80%, give it 100% of your 80%. You know, but be persistent and keep empowering yourself and keep growing and developing, in spite of the challenge.
I think I'm about to say the same thing, but maybe I'll use different words. But I'd like to leave everybody with the note that celebrate the victories, like Dr. Newman mentioned. But hold yourself accountable more than anything, and not in a negative way. Holding yourself accountable doesn't mean yelling at yourself at the end of the day when you didn't go to the gym. No, holding yourself accountable means showing up. So there are days that I don't make it to my yoga mat for more than 5 minutes, but I showed up. Like, I'll say it this way, like, I showed the fuck up, because that day, that's what 100% looked like. So hold yourself accountable for meeting your goals and meeting your body's needs, and you'll go a long way. And when you do hold yourself accountable and you do complete everything on your to-do list, or you have a few things left over, celebrate every single part of that. The self-expression is important. Take that in stride, man, because I started keeping a journal of the things that I do every day, the things I want to do, and then the things I do. And I check some things off, I add some things, and I find myself feeling really grateful at the end of the day. So embrace accountability, embrace, self-victory, and gratitude. Just a lot of gratitude.
Shamika?
Well, my advice would be take a nap. Don't be
I love
afraid
it.
to take a little power nap.
That's awesome.
Don't be afraid
If
to
you're
rest.
You can do that right now. Yeah.
Yeah, if you need a break, take a break, you know. But most importantly, do everything that you do with love. With love for yourself. If you're going through it, love yourself enough to do what you need to do to stay healthy. And if you're supporting someone that's suffering from it, love yourself enough to love them. I think love makes everything a whole lot better. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Miss AKA said I'm going to recommit to my journal now. Love it. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Dr. Newman, Lena, Shamika with Loop of Love. I think this is an amazing, powerful, empowering episode. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope everyone learned something. And we'll be posting this to Woke Wednesday's story. It'll be on there for 24 hours, and I'll also be uploading it to YouTube. Stay tuned next week. We're talking about interracial relationships. It's going to be really interesting. So can't wait. So again, thank you so much, and we hope to see you all next week. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.